If you're a micro-budget filmmaker, here's 4 films I think you should check out. Now, real quick, why should you watch micro-budget films? Well, as moviegoers in general, we typically watch movies that are made for a lot of money, usually upwards of, $50 million. So the 4 films I'm going to talk about today were technically made for $15,000 or less. We're going to nitpick a little bit with that, but the main productions of those films did cost $15,000 or less. So first up, we've got House, which was made for $15,000 and has a runtime of 102 minutes. That's the longest runtime you're going to see on the list today. Now, don't let the name throw you off. This movie is actually pretty sweet, pretty tender, and very sincere. I have no idea why they went with the title they did for it, but whatever. So it's directed by Cooper Raiff, and it's a very autobiographical film. He directs and stars in it himself. It's this coming-of-age drama about this college freshman who's basically super homesick, meets this girl, and he's just trying to navigate his way through that first year, and he feels like an outsider. So let's talk about how this movie got made, because it's pretty interesting. He initially made a $300 55-minute film with the actual girl that the movie is about. She basically plays herself. He plays himself. He said it looks and sounds like it was made for $300, but it had the story there. He sent a tweet to Jay Duplass and said, "I bet you won't watch this." He did watch it, and he said, "You lost the bet," decided he was going to produce this movie. I think there's 2 big things working for this movie of how they were able to pull it off for $15,000, because it does not look like a $15,000 film. It looks really good. Big cast, lots of locations, like the cinematography looks really good. There's notable actors who are very talented and who have lots of experience, which is something that you don't normally get with a lot of these micro-budget films. Cooper actually says himself, there were more people involved because everybody, of course, wanted to work on something Jay Duplass was involved in. Let's focus more on the more tangible takeaway for most of us. Cooper did a really good job of writing what he knew and working with what he had. The film is about college. It's about the college experience. And so it's actually shot on his college campus that he went to. I didn't mention this, but he was very young. He directed this when he was 22, which is incredible. And as far as cast goes, he was able to cast college students in his film about college. This is like probably the biggest disconnect you see with student films. They're casting college students as like hitmen and criminals and lawyers and doctors. So really good example of working with what you got. Number 2, we've got They Look Like People, directed by Perry Blackshear. And it's an 80-minute movie, which I think is just a great runtime for a micro-budget movie like this. I was not able to find a budget for it, but if you watch this movie, you can see that it could have been made for almost no money at all. It's about a man who thinks people are transforming into these evil beings, and he's trying to figure out how to protect his best friend. The ending is really powerful. It's a great movie. Perry Blackshear, the director, it seems like he one-man banded this movie. Watch the credits. There is no crew other than Perry here. You've got some producers, but they would not have been on set. Now, watch this shot. That's a lav mic. I think that's how they recorded audio for this whole movie. That and, dubbing lines probably. I found this super inspiring. He did all of his own cinematography, which the lighting is awesome at some points. The opening scene of the movie, this guy is in bed and he's like looking at his girlfriend, I think, but you don't see her face at all. You just see her backlit and her face is completely in darkness. And that's what this movie does so good. It plays with your imagination and lets you fill in the details. That's something that can be just super powerful and super cheap when it's done right. And I'm definitely gonna take notes here for my next feature film. Number 3, we've got The Dirty. It's directed by Matt Johnson. It's 83 minutes, and the production budget of the movie was $10,000. But we have a caveat here. There's some indie music used in the film, and so the total budget is actually $45,000 with these song clearances. But basically, he was able to make the whole movie for $10,000, and then in the end was able to get some extra money from like the producers or the distributors to add the music he wanted in afterwards. I think it still counts because the movie definitely still could have worked without those songs. Let me just read the description. The line between reality and fiction starts to blur when 2 best friends start making a movie about getting revenge on bullies. Video itself plays a huge part in the movie. There's like scenes where they're actually editing the movie and stuff, so it gets a little meta that way. The way they blur the line between reality and fiction is really cool because there's certain scenes where the people that are being interviewed, they don't know they're in a movie. I think they may be aware that they're being filmed, but they might think it's like a documentary they're being interviewed for. There's improv going on, and there's people who are just real people who aren't trying to play characters in the movie. And then there's other people who are. It just all flows together really seamlessly to add a lot of reality to the movie. Very funny, but also super heartbreaking and really tense towards the end. I won't spoil anything, but like my heart was really beating those last 10 minutes of the movie because they've built this thing up to feel so real. And basically how they did this, they filmed it at a real high school that they got permission to film at. School is a huge centerpiece location for the movie. This one's going to be controversial, I know. A lot of you have seen it. Paranormal Activity. This one is really interesting with the budget because I've always heard that it was made for $15,000, and it was. The main production was made for $15,000, but the post-production after the film was acquired is insane. They wanted to redo the sound, and they spent $150,000 on post-production just on the sound. That's 10 times the budget of the movie. But just goes to show you how important sound is, especially in a movie like this where it's horror, there's no music. So sound is going to be incredibly important. And then they spent another $50,000 reshooting the ending of the movie based on the input of Steven Spielberg. So $200,000 for post-production, $15,000 for the actual shooting production. They show very little in this movie, giving you just enough to let your imagination run wild and create something scarier than anything that they could actually show on screen. They shot the movie in only 7 days. This was apparently a self-imposed deadline by the director, which I think is really a smart thing to do. I was hearing some professionals talk about this recently, that they don't get anything done unless they actually have a deadline. Me personally, I overthink everything and feel like it's just not going to be good enough unless I give myself some kind of deadline or there's some kind of outside pressure to get the thing done. But yeah, if you break it down, the film is 2 people all in one house. Lots of handheld footage. Don't need crazy lighting setups because it's supposed to feel real. Now, obviously, found footage is not as popular as it used to be, but maybe that means there's actually an opportunity to make some more because it's not so saturated right now. And it's insane how this spawned a whole franchise. Apparently, there was one that came out this year. I just didn't even hear about it. So what's the takeaways here? Definitely embrace your limitations. I would say don't try to do a worse version of the expensive movies that Hollywood is already doing. It may crash and burn horribly, but maybe it will at least be memorable. Take some risks. If you're looking for more examples of great micro-budget movies, I did a video about 10 great micro-budget movies, and you can check it out in the card. Thanks for watching.